right, everybody, we have a brand new type of video here. That's right, I am playing, and not only that, this isn't just my gameplay. I was in a tournament. I had entered Gems' Christmas Bout, I believe is what the name was, and it's a $500 tournament over this past weekend. One of the bigger tournaments that we've seen. I think there was about maybe 200 plus people, maybe 220 people in it, and a lot of familiar faces. I actually got to play Lazy Guga, Lady Gaga, Yang Zera, and Real Key all in the tournament. It was really, really fun being able to play some familiar faces and just really sink my teeth into some competitive gameplay. It got my mind, the gears turning in a little bit of a different way than they usually turn. Or maybe just turning at all. They don't usually turn much. Anyways, so I just real quick wanted to go through a different type of video with you guys, and that is just kind of a little more analytical than usual, taking a deep dive into these two tournament games. And before that, really, too, going through my mindset prior to a tournament, maybe things that you guys should be considering. And I just hope that you guys can take away, hopefully, some knowledge from my experiences in the tournament. And if you guys have any suggestions or ideas, put them in the comments below. Let me know what you want. I don't know. I mean, I like doing this content. If you guys want more of this type of content, hit that like button. Let me know. As always, subscribe as well. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the bell so you get notified when these go live. I'm going to do the first 3 rounds. I actually ended up going 2-2 in this tournament. I started 2-0, and then I lost my last 2 games. I ended up dropping. I could have technically maybe still top gut, but I wanted to just kind of get into my gameplay. I really just wanted to get back into the tournament gameplay in general, so I was more focused on reviewing the VODs and stuff as quickly as possible. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, shit just works playing in a tournament. Here we go. Alright, so first and foremost, my lineup. I'm going to get a little bit more into this in a second, but triple GP. If you don't know what GP is, it's not Gangplank. It's Grand Plaza. I got Scouts Grand Plaza, Control Grand Plaza with Garen Aurelion Sol, and Undead Grand Plaza, whatever you want to call it, Lucian Callista. So the Scouts version is something that, I mean, this deck has been everywhere, right? You've probably seen this deck. It's very typical. It's built just like Scouts would usually be built, except it doubles down more on the Island Navigators and the Petty Officers. There's actually people as well. I think one of the mirror matches I played, they are playing, where is that card? What is the 2? Oh, no, it's 3 mana, I think. It's a 3 mana spell that summons 2 1-cost units, right? Not Succession. Wow, why can't I find this spell? It's somewhere in here, I promise you. Oh, here we go. Double Trouble. Summon 2 random 1-cost followers. So this is pretty good, too. Basically does the same thing as something like Petty Officer. Just a little bit more RNG, obviously, because you don't know if you're going to get a 3-1 or not. But they both have +1/+1 Challenger. Feels pretty good. So this is a deck to ladder with for sure right now. Second deck, I love this deck. Aurelion Sol Garen Control. This is amazing. This is not only a fun deck, but just good in general. The idea is to just stall out until later in the game. You get, Eclipse Dragon and Aurelion Sol to really just double down on getting, a lot of juicy resources out of both of them. A lot of Celestial Generation. Obviously, Star Shaping helps as well. And then Garen allows you to rally each turn. So you're getting those big Celestials. Every turn you're able to, attack, theoretically, with Challenger as well. So, and Grand Plaza with Crystal Ranger is just an OP combo. So why not throw that in there too, right? So, Solari Sunforgers really impressed me as well, FYI. So we'll get into this deck a little bit more later. And finally, Lucian Callista Grand Plaza. This is go face as quickly as possible. Not really as happy with this deck as the other 2 decks. But again, the idea is something like Grand Plaza plus Haunted Relic plus Callista. Seems like a pretty strong combo. Go face, kill him as quickly as possible, get a couple Cithria on field. Feels pretty good too. So now, as far as what this lineup is concerned about, something like Leona. Grand Plaza rewards development. If you're playing units and developing, that means you're susceptible to things like stuns on the side of Leona. Anything that's going to shut down development. Even Ezreal Draven might sometimes not be the greatest with that because of Arachnoid Sentry, things like that. So that's something to take into consideration with the picks and bans. But what I really want to get into is the mental before the game. Man, I played a lot of the scouts. I played a lot of the control. I've played scouts forever. This control deck recently came up, and I've been playing it a lot because it's fun. I think BBG was one of the first people to create this deck. I think. I have not played Callista Lucian at all. That's a no-no. Don't ever do that going into a tournament. Even if it's the lineup you have is not the best tournament lineup, as long as all three decks are decks that you're familiar with, play them. Because you'll know the ins and outs. You'll know the curves you're trying to hit, the mana curves. You'll know, whether or not it's better to have the attack token on odds or evens or what to do on certain turns. So that's what you should have went with. In retrospect, I should have did TF Go Hard as an example instead of that deck. Probably would have been a lot better. This was 100% my weak deck throughout the entire tournament. So much of these games, because of that, I made a lot of misplays with the Callista Lucian deck, which you'll see, more so in the third game versus Yang Zera. Especially my first game with him, I think I made a crap ton of misplays. And another thing, so me personally, I let my caster vision get in the way a little bit of me making decisions. What I mean by that is a few different things. So firstly, I brought triple Grand Plaza to meme. And I don't know if I really wanted to meme. I almost felt like I had to meme. I don't know if that makes it I was pressured to meme, it's funnier if I meme or whatever, but I should have brought TF Go Hard. I didn't really want to because I figured it was a boring deck. Everybody's seen it. Honestly, those are long games as well, and bringing two control type decks would not have been fun for me. My brain would have hurt even more. So there's that. There's also me just thinking during the game, because I'm thinking about what I would think as a caster of the player that's now me playing the game. So it's really convoluted and messed up. And I even almost played a card specifically because I knew they were casting my game in round 3 versus Yang Zera, and just to meme on Boulevard to just joke and play a judgment when it might have lost me the game. I ended up winning that game, but I just remember that thought going through my head. So long story short, don't let emotions get the better of you in tournaments. That includes tilting. Make decisions based on facts. That's it. It's a card game. There's set amount of cards in each player's decks, especially with open deck lists. You know exactly what they're playing. Make it based on statistics, probabilities, facts. Don't let emotion get involved. So just some stuff, some personal stuff, prep prior to the game, stuff like that I went through. Hope it helps you guys out. But let's go ahead and get into the first game of round 1. My opponent, Genesis. Let's see how this goes. All right, everybody. So here we go. Wish me luck. We're getting into game 1 here. Again, just bear with me. I got some notes on the side I'm going to get to as well. I just wanted to make sure I touch on everything here. So to get started, though, we got this Overwhelm deck. I'm going to pause it real quick. On the side of our opponent, Genesis, which is running 3 Battle Fury, which is really the big card to watch out for there. Also get the 3 Troll Chant in there. Things like Alpha Wild Claw. Just the typical Overwhelm build. It is playing the Aversion Outriders as well. So as far as this matchup is concerned, my deck, and again, this is the one that I had a lot less experience with, which is what I think killed me here throughout the tournament. I did end up winning this 2-0 over my opponent, but you can see some of the clear misplays here in a little bit. So my deck, early to mid game. My opponent's deck, mid to late game, has a lot of just blowout potential with things like Battle Fury on an Overwhelm unit. Out of nowhere. Single combat is actually a pretty big deal as well when it comes to Overwhelm, which we'll see here in a little bit. And one of the things I wanted to point out too is there's going to be a few moments in these games where I'm going to pause it. And I'm going to ask you guys what you think. And, just take a second, go ahead, think real quick, how would you go about that play? And then I'll obviously, give you my answer anyways. And I don't know, just a little fun interactivity here in the video, right? So, all right, anyways. Again, Battle Fury, big concern, and we don't really have a good way of preventing Overwhelm damage. We don't really have a good way of preventing any damage, really, in this deck. We either win faster than our opponent, or we don't win. All right, so that's one thing to take into consideration. Cithria here might play a big role in this matchup as well. So as far as the mulligans are concerned, I started learning throughout this tournament that, which I knew this. If you get Callista and, Jesus, what's the name of that card? Haunted Relic and Grand Plaza first turn, you just auto-win. So you do want to try to mulligan for Callista and Haunted Relic as much as possible. If you can't get that combo in particular, you want to try to go for that typical aggressive Shadow Isles thing. So, like, think They Who Endure Spiders, right? Where you get, like, a Cursed Keeper and a Blighted Caretaker or a Ravenous Butcher turn 1 and 2 and 3, and you just go ham, and you're dealing, like, 7 to 10 damage by the time turn 3 rolls around. You can at least start with that, and then generally you'll draw into some other aggressive tools. You can close out the game. In this case, we did get Blighted with Callista, which is also a nice little combo there. And go ahead, you kill the unit with Blighted plus the 2 saplings. That's 2 more units. So maybe that's something we'll get here in just a little bit. So another general rule of thumb too with the mulligans I want to touch on again. For aggro decks, at least for me anyways, and this is matchup dependent, generally I try to not keep spells in my first hand, okay? You want to draw into spells. Why? Because, or it depends. If you're playing a burn deck, then obviously you might want some spells. It really depends on the type of deck that you're playing. But generally, board-centric, aggressive decks, you want your board-centric units first, right? Like, you want to be able to maintain that tempo and that aggression over your opponent so that you don't fall behind on board. And things like spells don't do that, right? Sharp Sight's great in this deck, but you don't want your hand flooded with Sharp Sights early on because what are you going to play Sharp Sight on? You need a unit, right? So generally, you want to mulligan those away in the beginning. So I just wanted to get that out there as well. Maybe I should have kept Ravenous in that opening mulligan. I end up drawing it here anyways, so no big deal. One thing that I saw myself making a lot of mistakes with was Remembrance. And I'm gonna pause it there. So 2 things. I could have played Ravenous there to go in for additional damage, right? So I didn't because I was worried about Ruthless Raider and just getting chump blocked by the Raider, and now I lose my Ravenous Butcher. I don't deal any damage. I just deal the 1 damage with the Warden Spray. Yeah, you could have argued either way. My opponent didn't have the Ruthless Raider, so and they were playing it. It wasn't the deck list. So I guess I was kind of not rewarded for that play, I guess you could say. But I don't end up going for it there. Remembrance is a card that I failed to track throughout most of my games playing this deck. You need to constantly be aware of what is happening to get that Remembrance down to 0, 1, 2, 3 cost, right? You need to always be aware, okay, if I play X, Y, and Z cards, it's going to cost 3. And you kind of got to play out sometimes a couple turns out in your head in advance to get to that correct number, right? So one thing I want to mention here, now that we have Grand Plaza, and Grand Plaza is kind of the namesake of the deck. It's how you win games. It's freaking OP. All right, when you're playing landmarks, typically, all right, and this is just a note that just in general for landmarks, at least from what I've seen anyways, you want to play landmarks on an opponent's attack turn when they have the token after they've used their unit mana, okay? This does a couple things. A, you're playing the landmark after they've already committed mana, and which means they have less mana to commit units to the board, because when you play that landmark, generally you're out of mana, especially if you're playing it early on turn 3. We have no more unit mana. That's a green light for your opponent to go, all right, I can do whatever I want. I'm going to go face. My opponent is out of mana. They don't have any units to block. I'm going face. So you want to try to avoid that, and that's why we do some weird passes sometimes with Grand Plaza. And the second thing is you want to get the attack token the turn after you get Grand Plaza down, or at least for the type of landmark that Grand Plaza is, right? And there are other landmarks that play similarly. You want to get the turn going into your attack token, because then that means you basically have 2 turns to utilize that landmark before your opponent has the chance to be the aggressor again, right? So that's what you're seeing here. I just wanted to get that note out there quick with landmarks. It's very important with Grand Plaza to actually, play it at the correct times as far as that's concerned. So we do play it down here. Obviously, that just means our opponent's going to get a free 3 damage in unless we decide to block. You could have argued blocking there because we don't want Warden's Prey sticking around. We're not getting any value out of it other than using it for fodder. Now, we do have Bloody Caretaker and Ravenous Butcher in hand. So, that's a thing. We might need it to stick around. It's really awkward, though, on this turn 4 here, because we don't quite have the mana to get, like, Callista and something else down, like Blighted, or even I'd want to get Callista and Curse Keepa and Ravenous Butcher down. Keepa, Jesus. Yeah, you can tell I'm from Boston. But because of that awkward mana point, because we have the attack token on evens like that, it just feels really awkward going in for an attack and the units with the hand that we have. Now, it feels good that we're getting the attack token on the first turn that we can fully utilize Grand Plaza, so we get that going for us. But on the side of our opponent, they have larger units. So you can see here, these trades are garbage. Like, sure, we get the trade onto the Trapper, and we feel pretty safe about keeping the Callista around because they don't really have removal. They just have, buffs and stuff. So we could get Troll Chanted out here. Not really a big deal. But, like, this Ravenous Butcher onto the Yeti feels terrible. This feels absolute garbage. You never want to be sacrificing a unit like that. It's just not looking good for sure. So I'm kind of forced to play the Callista here. I mean, I guess I could have played the Cursed Keeper, but again, the Cursed Keeper isn't going to trade with anything either, right? It doesn't trade with this Aversion Trapper. It doesn't really trade with anything. Blighted, you could argue, makes more sense. If I had Blighted there, I could have played Remembrance for 3 mana, right? Because the Blighted would have sacked the Warden's Prey, then the 2 Saplings would have died, and then I would have gotten the Remembrance down. The thing with Blighted, okay, because you can already tell I'm falling behind in tempo on field, right? We need to be getting as much value out of Blighted Caretaker as possible. And right here, if we had played Blighted, we would have only been able to trade the Trapper. We would have gotten 3 damage onto the Yeti, which honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, might have been better here. Just because we wouldn't have put 3 damage onto our Callista. Again, I don't think the damage really matters because our opponent isn't playing removal, but I don't know. I guess my idea was save the Blighted Caretaker to level the Callista on a future turn. Because next turn, or at least the turn after, because that'll be another attack turn, I will have the Cursed Keeper with the Blighted Caretaker, right? And then I have this random 3-drop, right, that I can throw down next turn as a defender, as a blocker. So, yeah, just really awkward. Really, really, really awkward. And I think that was one of my problems with this particular deck. I didn't really like turn 4. It's not whether you had the attack token or not. Turn 4 just really always seemed like an awkward turn. The other thing too, when you're playing Grand Plaza with really aggressive decks like this in Scouts, it feels like you never want to summon or play anything on your opponent's attack turn, like ever. Like this feels okay because this is just a free blocker and I get 3 gems out of it, which is nice. I get to heal up my Callista, right? Feels all right. I'm losing board though. I'm already way far behind on board, and this deck is a deck that needs to stay up on board. So I don't know if I really played this right. I always question every single time I played this deck this day. I questioned it, and again, like I said, I didn't really play this deck a whole lot before the tournament, which is probably a mistake on my part. I'm not gonna lie. So I don't really have a choice but to play the Mentor. Blocking this Overwhelm unit is always risky. So something like single combat, as an example, means the Overwhelm damage still goes through. Or if my opponent just buffs the Overwhelm unit out of kill range of this Mentor of the Gems, Mentor of the Stones, what the heck the name of it is, and I just get blown out. So like I don't think I was really avoiding anything happening this turn. Like Troll Chant is so much better than Sharp Sight. It's always going to prevent me from really being able to play Sharp Sight in a good spot because it's 4 stats versus Sharp Sight is really only 2 on the health side. It just provides that extra aggression on the attack side as well. So it's kind of one of the drawbacks in this matchup anyways, is Sharp Sight versus Troll Chant. Troll Chant's usually going to win. 4 mana Remembrance feels all right, but again, feels awkward playing it off turn. And that actually, I want to bring something up real quick. I have played Remembrance so many times off turn here, and actually, you know what? Dude, I think I go over this a little bit later. No, you know what? I'm going to go over it now. I don't care if I'm meant to go over it later. Remembrance feels bad. Remembrance just feels really, really bad in this deck. It just feels like you want to be attacking so that things die and then you play Remembrance. Well, Grand Plaza rewards you for like developing on board. So you want to play Remembrance before you attack. And it's kind of counterintuitive. It's one of the same reasons why I didn't play Radiant Guardian in that other deck, the Garen Aurelion Soul deck, which we'll see here in a second. Because GP rewards you for developing, Radiant Guardian rewards you for not developing. You want to trade stuff first and then play Radiant Guardian. So just kind of counterintuitive to playing Grand Plaza in and of itself, right? So Swiftwing Lancer, not a bad pull though with the Remembrance, so not gonna complain too much. So real quick, I think if I remember this correctly, I think I don't play Caretaker here. I think I go in for the attack with this Cursed Keeper and the Swiftwing, and I just take these 2 trades, which could again get like a Troll Chant or something like that. But I think I'm okay with it because both of my units have a Death Rattle, or Jesus, wow, talk about Hearthstone, a Last Breath effect. They're both going to die regardless, but I feel okay taking those trades. If my opponent actually keeps both units, then I just die, right? Because they can just open attack next turn. So if they can actually save both Yetis, but I'm screwed either way. Like I said, this is kind of a bad matchup, so I just have to go for it. So now my question is, why didn't I play the Caretaker here going in for the attack? So I'm gonna pause it real quick. Why didn't I play the Caretaker here? Because it seems like a pretty good play, right? I mean, I'm able to, let me get the Swiftwing out of the way. Oh, okay, yeah. So, I mean, I would have been able to trade both of these off. I would have gotten an additional attacker with the Cursed Keeper here as well. So, I don't know. It just seems like it would have been a better play. So, my reasoning was I can't afford to fall behind even more on board. If I had played the Caretaker there, that would have given my opponent the chance to develop something else with me having almost no mana. In retrospect, it probably, because of what comes out next, I think is an Alpha Wildclaw. If I play through this clip, I think they play an Alpha Wildclaw next. So I think the Caretaker actually would have been a better choice there. And it also kept open two Sharp Sights, which I had 2 Sharp Sights in hand. So if something like a Troll Chant came out, I couldn't really afford to lose the trade on either one of those battles. With those Yetis, I probably would have had the double Sharp Sight. It feels really bad. Whereas if I went for the Bloody Caretaker, I would have still had a unit left, but I might have still gotten blown out by Troll Chant. I think either way, I was kind of not in really a good spot. But hey, just figured I'd go over that real quick. That was kind of that decision-making point. And again, I want to get good value out of this Bloody Caretaker if it's leveling a Lucian or leveling a Callista and kind of guaranteeing those trades with my opponent. So I want them to play something like an Alpha Wildclaw before I go in so they don't have mana up for all these Troll Chants and single combats and stuff. So, all right. This doesn't feel that... I mean, actually, this is pretty okay. This is pretty okay. This Sejuani... I mean, it's going to push through more damage. I think, does this actually represent... I know, this doesn't represent lethal because I have Cithria. This is why I said Cithria is important in this matchup. A lot of the times, I am... Or sorry, this is like the only big follower in the whole deck. Champion, anything. It's got 7 health. It's the only thing that's really going to withstand anything. Sharp Sight on this feels really good. What I want to say, quick note. Always remember champion spells. Every time. I think in a second, you're actually going to see me like Alt-Tab, and you're going to see my desktop flash. And that's because I literally thought to myself, you can see me hovering the card and being like, Fury of the North was played. Well, it's Sejuani's Fury of the North. I looked at the deck list. I remember this happening while I was playing. I'm like, wait a second. This person didn't tell me they're playing Fury of the North. Like, they submitted an invalid deck list. No, idiot. It's a champion spell. Because Sejuani's on the field. I always forget to play around champion spells. It's like a really bad habit of mine. I always mention it when I cast as well. It's sometimes really hard while you're really deep into the game to remember stuff like that. But you have to. It's a thing. And I think maybe because I sped up the game, it actually flashed so quick that I didn't even see it. But anyways, now we got the sapling. So this is now I'm deciding to play the Blighted Caretaker because this represents lethal. All right. I think this is 20 damage. If I pull with a sapling, I represent 20 damage because of Cithria. Now, I can also trade with the Sejuani because of Cithria. And this is great. I mean, again, I am playing to the one advantage I do have, which is their only removal is really single combat. I know they're not just going to straight up single combat my Cithria with something like a Sejuani. So I can afford to summon something. If they do take that single combat, great. More power to you. I love it. So now I go in for the attack. Now, these gems. We play some gems here. These gems actually come in, I don't know, I don't want to say really big. I don't think they really matter when everything is said and done because of what's in my opponent's hand. But you're going to see me play all 3 gems on this Cithria. Why do I play all 3 gems on the Cithria? Real quick. I'm going to pause it for you guys. So, obviously the 1 gem on the Abomination is so that I can go ahead and... Or did I even play the gem on the Abomination? No, never mind. It gets buffed. But I actually think... I'm remembering when I played this matchup. I was thinking about playing a gem, and then I realized that Cythria buffs it. So I play the gems on the Cythria because of a single combat. If my opponent, which I was playing around single combat a lot this game, the two cards I was worried about was single combat and Battle Fury. So what single combat on the Trapper onto my Cythria would have felt really bad. It's going to prevent 4 damage from the sapling, and then it's also going to kill my Cythria, which is preventing a whole slew of extra damage as well. Whereas now they're forced to play it on the Sejuani. If they play it on the Sejuani, I am A-okay with that because they lose their Sejuani, and I keep my Abomination around, which is a pretty damn good unit to keep around. And I'm still pushing, what was that, 8 damage with my other unit. So I wanted to make sure that it was out of range of that single combat with Aversion Trapper, hence the 3 gems. So just wanted to point that out to you guys real quick. Plus it pushes more damage, so there's that. So Remembrance, again, this is what I mean. Great, 2-mana Remembrance, feels really good. I guess in general, Remembrance is just good if you're getting it for super cheap anyways, especially if you pop a Radiant Guardian out there, but it's like I'm playing it after combat. It feels so much less impactful playing it after combat. You could argue here that it does a lot too because of the lifesteal, but I don't. It's just so awk, man. So awk. Not cool. Not cool. All right. This block. This is kind of like I don't want to say mislethal, but curious to see who can actually figure this out. Comment below if you guys know. What could my opponent have had here in hand that I was concerned about that could have won the game? Like, what situation could have happened here where my opponent could have won the game if I did not block with Radiant Guardian? So, knowing, like, kind of some of the cards I've been playing around throughout the game, I know this is kind of rigged because you guys don't have the deck list, but what could they have potentially had that would have won it here? And it's kind of the reason I ask is because it's a thing that I think some people don't always remember, especially newer players, when they're trying to figure out combat damage, and the eye can only do so much. So if I didn't block with Radiant Guardian here, let's say I blocked with even the 7/7 Cythria, right, just to prevent as much damage. It's only going to deal 1 damage of Overwhelm, right? Feels good. No way that even if they buffed up, actually, well, no, if they buffed up with the Battle Fury, then that would, yeah, never mind. So but Cythria, if there was a single combat, which my opponent has 3 mana, they do have enough for single combat, came out. The single combat actually kills the unit first, then the attack goes through. And because there's no unit blocking, Overwhelm means no phantom blockers can exist. The Trinimir is going to level up. It's going to deal 9 damage. Now, with the Radiant Guardian blocking, that means that I am now able to get off that single combat the 4 lifesteal that would have happened. And then now the damage coming through from the level Trinimir will not actually kill me. So, super, super important thought process there to play around that card, which could have potentially won my opponent the game if I blocked with the wrong person. So let's go ahead. All right. I don't need to. Okay. Oh no. This is actually going. I didn't need to play the Callista after on my opponent's last turn because we obviously have plenty of mana to go ahead and play it this turn and get the challenger and all that good stuff. So here is something I also want to note to you guys. This landmarks can be overwritten. Okay, let's just throw that out there. Landmarks, they do not need to stay on the board. There's a big problem with this deck, and that is that you fill up your board space very quick. I already had to burn one of these ephemeral units because I didn't have the board space, right? And I still don't even have the board space to play Callista. Well, but I do. If you look the way this is set up, my opponent is going to take 4 damage from this Blighted Caretaker, which is 1 shy of lethal. Okay. If I had played the Callista, I could have overwritten the landmark, the Grand Plaza, and that means I would have had an additional attacker. Not to mention the Callista on its own, if leveled. So if I pulled with these 2 ephemerals first, they would have died. Some other unit would have died being blocked, and then the Callista would have leveled for exactly 5 damage. So, like, because then the consideration is if I played the Callista, maybe they played another blocker. That Callista was exact lethal, right? So, or actually, if they did play another blocker, they could have blocked the Callista, possibly. I don't know. All I'm saying is I could have had lethal there by replacing the Grand Plaza. So don't forget, and I think in my game with Yang Zera, he actually replaces Grand Plaza at some point because he was playing triple GP as well. That is a thing that you can do, and not just with Grand Plaza, any other landmark. So it's definitely something to take into consideration in certain games where you might be able to close out the game with that last unit, even though it doesn't get +1/+1. And excuse me, challenger, you're gonna win the game. What does it matter? So, and it's very important. So I just wanted to throw that out there for you guys, for anybody who not really too familiar with landmarks, or again, if you're a little new to the game there. So, but this last turn, pretty scary. These two overwhelm units. If my opponent had something, really anything like a Battle Fury, I would have lost to there, right? Putting me down to 2. It was really close in the end, but unfortunately, I was able to take it away from my opponent. So that is game 1, a game that I probably should have lost, to be honest with you, versus that overwhelm deck. Very bad matchup, I feel, for the Callisto Lucian. So that's 1-0. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that kind of deep dive into my first tournament round that I've had in a while. If you guys have any suggestions, thoughts, or anything, put them in the comments below. Let me know if you guys like this. I might try to put a little bit more time and effort into these deeper analytical dives into some of my games. It was actually really fun playing in a tournament because I don't get to think like that. Like when I'm casting, the thinking is a lot faster because I'm trying to say other things non-game related to keep it interesting, right? So it's a much different way of thinking, and I really enjoyed it. It got me honestly back on my toes a little bit. I think it'll help with my casting as well. So pretty fun stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully I can enter some more tournaments soon if I have the time as well. And we should get the other 2 rounds up later this week at some point. So hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, everybody stay healthy, stay positive. I hope shit just works for you, and peace out.